plaintiff, Ms. Tharney, and defendant, Ms. King. So you plaintiff, you are suing your first cousin, and you are suing her for theft of some collectible plates that you had in your car, and you loaned your car to your cousin, and the plates were stolen out of the car while your cousin had the car, but apparently while your plates were being stolen, your cousin was stealing your husband.
Absolutely.
Clearly, this is a family affair. So I'd like to know a little bit more, plaintiff, about your relationship with your first cousin.
We grew up together. You know, she grew up in South Dakota, I grew up in Florida, but because our mothers were sisters, you know, of course they were very close, so we saw each other a lot.
So how is it, because you were growing up in different states, how is it that you came to be living in the same place?
So my mom died whenever I was a teenager, and I always knew that I wanted to live closer to family, you know, because that's very hard. She's all I've got left. So a few years ago, my husband and I decided to move our family to Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
So how long have you and your husband been married?
Over 10 years.
Okay, so you and your husband take your kids. How many kids do you have?
We have 2.
So you and your husband and your 2 kids, you move to be closer to the only family that you have.
Right.
Tell me about when you first got there, living close to your first cousin, what it was like with the 2 of you.
Oh, it was awesome. We had so much fun together. You know, I lived in a new place, and we would go to all these cool places, and we all hung out.
I see you brought some photographs with you.
Yeah.
This is you and the defendant, your cousin. Looks like, was this one of the times you guys were hanging out, having fun? Where are you at in this photograph?
We're at some cool little bar, you know, having a good time, drinking some craft brews or whatever. You know?
Okay, so I see you have a witness with you. Who do you have with you?
This is my husband.
Okay, come forward, sir. Mr. Tharney.
Yes, Your Honor.
I see that your wife's talked about how she and her cousin were hanging out. It looks like they were having fun. Were you there when they were going to bars and hanging out and going to restaurants? Were you there?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so had you ever met the defendant before you and your wife and your kids moved to be closer to her family?
Well, yes, Your Honor. As Jamie said, they were fairly close. So, I mean, there had been some trips. She'd come down to Florida, visited us a few times, stayed with us. The kids know her.
Oh, wait. She stayed in your house?
She did at one point when she came down to Florida, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, defendant. Your cousin, the plaintiff, and her husband and her 2 kids moved to be closer to you. How did you feel about having your family so close to you?
It was great, and I helped them out a lot, honestly. They stayed at my house.
I can tell you were helping out a lot.
Someone's got to do it. I'm just saying.
So, they moved to be closer to you. At what point did you start looking at your cousin's husband?
It wasn't even that I was looking at him. We got drunk once, and it takes 2 to tango.
So tell me about this one time when you and your cousin's husband got drunk. What happened?
We were at my house because they were staying with me at the time. And
okay, so this happened at your house.
Yes. And Jamie had too much to drink, so she had passed out on the couch. And we were intoxicated. I'm sober now, so I see, like, obviously this is bad. I'm trying to rekindle our relationship. I care so much about Jamie and our family.
How do you get from my cousin, her husband, and her kids are staying with me and this is my family to I get drunk one night and wind up in bed with her husband? How do you go from point A to point B?
Well, it was the kitchen counter. It was not the bed.
Your cousin, her husband, and her kids, the children are there. They're staying in your house with you. Mm-hmm. You guys are up, you're drinking. Your cousin, who's the plaintiff in this case, has a little too much to drink, and so she goes to bed. So it's just you and her husband left.
We had all had too much to drink.
Okay.
That's for sure.
So it's just you and her husband left.
Yes.
So what happened next?
Well, he was going in about their problems and how much stressful it was now that they're in South Dakota, and I had too much to drink, and it was just one thing led to another, and I just felt bad.
one thing led to another, and you wound up on the kitchen counter with him? Tell me how you wound up on the kitchen counter with your cousin's husband.
I mean, someone's sad, you want to make them feel better, and he raised me, and I went in, and there we were on the kitchen counter.
So who made the first move? Was it you or was it him?
It was him.
Right.
So, plaintiff, did you know about what happened at the kitchen counter encounter? Did you know anything about any of this?
No.
So this was all going on behind your back when you were living in the same house with your cousin.
Right.
So, I'd like to turn to you, Mr. Thorney, because she's right. It does take two to tango, and apparently you were the other partner in the tango.
Yes, sir.
So, how do you go from, we're sitting up, we're having drinks, my wife goes to bed, and I'm here with her cousin, and then you wind up on a kitchen counter with her?
Yeah, well, Your Honor, it certainly wasn't the intent. We had spent a lot of time together as a family or as friends, or
So, when did you start looking at her where you started to feel attracted to her?
And that was the thing. There wasn't really, like I said, any intent to make that happen. I know she says here that I made the first move, but I think that perhaps her attitude, cavalier attitude towards the situation, shows that maybe she was a little more forward than she's letting on. But a lot of alcohol, like I said, obviously the kids were in bed, so it was not, that was well taken care of.
So you're blaming it all on the alcohol?
Well, yes, Your Honor, we're blaming it all on the alcohol. At the beginning, sometimes marriages have problems, and we have been working through things, and hopefully are able to now.
Problems in marriage don't cause cheating. Cheating causes problems in marriage.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How do you get from my cousin, her husband, and her kids are staying with me, and this is my family, to I get drunk one night and wind up in bed with her husband? How do you go from point A to point B?
Well, it was the kitchen counter. It was not the bed.
Okay, so it was on the kitchen counter. Okay, so let's back up a minute. So what sorts of things were you going to your wife's cousin and complaining about?
Well, so not so much complaining as discussing the ongoings of our lives at that point in time. I mean, 2 kids and 3 adults living in one small, half a house, essentially. Jamie has lost her job, or at least got cut back a lot due to the COVID, and I was putting in a lot more hours, and we were all under a very stressful time, and still are.
Okay, well, it sounds like I'm hearing a lot of excuses from you, Mr. Thorney. Plaintiff, did you ever see any sort of, could you sense anything or see any flirting or anything going on between your cousin and your husband?
No, I had no idea until I found out my car got broken into. No clue.
Okay, so tell me about how it is that your cousin had your car.
She borrows it often. It's kind of common for us. We share things, apparently.
Apparently? You shared more than you thought you were sharing.
Right. So yeah, she borrows the car. Sometimes she watches the kids for us. Things like that. Just seem normal.
Okay, so after you are on the kitchen countertop with your cousin's husband, and you said that's how the affair started, did you feel guilty after that?
I felt guilty for a while, but I just feel like I was handing out so much for them,
So you felt like she needed to repay you by you sleeping with her husband?
I mean, it wasn't worth that much, but I don't...
So you're saying you felt guilty, but not guilty enough to stop sleeping with your cousin's husband?
We didn't have it wasn't like we were fooling around every single day or anything,
So how often were you fooling around?
At the time, it was just that once, and then it got a little bit more serious, and I suggested that we would go and use a hotel room.
Ah, okay.
But he did all the booking.
Let's back up a little bit. You said things started getting more intense. Were you and the plaintiff's husband carrying on this affair in the house while you were all living together?
We were trying not to. We were trying to be respectful.
One thing you were not doing in this situation was being respectful. It's not respectful to sleep with your cousin's husband. There's just no level of respect there whatsoever.
And I am sorry about that. I've tried to mend our relationship multiple times, and that's why I feel like we're here in court, is that she's just throwing me under the bus for having an affair with her husband.
Yeah, I'm sure she's a tad resentful because of what you did to her. I mean,
Understandable.
you literally stabbed her in the back. You understand that, right? So you're carrying on this affair right under your cousin's nose. Do you think that maybe because she trusted you so much, that's how you were able to get away with this?
It makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense, huh? So whose idea was it to go to the hotel? Was it your idea or was it your idea?
I suggested that a hotel would be more respectful, is the words that I said, but obviously...
So you thought it was more respectful to go to a hotel and screw your cousin's husband? Is that what you thought?
I suggested that we would go and use a hotel room,
Ah, okay.
but he did all the booking.
Do you think that maybe because she trusted you so much, that's how you were able to get away with this?
It makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense, huh? I'd like to go to the day when you caught your cousin, who's like a sister to you,
Right.
sleeping with your husband. Let's go to that day.
So she asked to borrow the car, and I was like, yeah, fine, take the keys, go do whatever you need to do, totally fine. Hours later, I get a call. Your car's been broken into. Really?
So, did you have anything of value in the car?
Yes.
Okay, tell me what you had in the car.
I had a set of Lord of the Rings commemorative plates and swords, which I loved, and they were in the car because I had somebody to buy them so that I could catch up with bills.
These were things that you had in your car that you say are collectibles that you were
Right.
planning to sell.
Yes. It's selling for $45 a piece for the plates. That doesn't even include the swords.
What value do you place on the collectibles that were in your car when it was broken into?
$940 is how much I had agreed to sell them to this fella,
Why did you have the collectible plates in the car?
because I'd already loaded them up in there so I could take them to this guy who's going to buy them. And then she left the car unlocked.
I did not. I left it locked just like we agreed.
Defendant, you were borrowing her car so you could go hook up with her husband at a hotel,
Right.
right?
Right.
That her husband booked.
Mr. Thorny, did you book it?
I mean, I didn't book it, I just went and paid for it. It wasn't,
You did. You planned to hook up with her, and you planned this whole thing, didn't you?
well, you know, I was at work and I had received some messages, and she wanted to meet up, and you know, it was a bad decision, certainly, and I certainly regret it, but yes, I did go ahead and go to the hotel and get the room at that time.
Let me just get this straight. You borrow your cousin's car to go and hook up with her husband at a hotel. Is that what I'm understanding?
That is correct. But the one thing that is wrong, the car was locked. I have proof here that the window was bashed when the plates were stolen.
Okay, I'd like to see that, please. So you presented me with what looks like a photograph or a couple of photographs, and these are photographs of the car window broken?
Yes, I sent those pictures to her when I told her that her car had gotten broken into.
How long were you there at the hotel with them?
Maybe an hour?
Okay,
But
so
we weren't there
he's
that
quick,
long.
huh? He didn't take that long.
I told you it wasn't very hot.
So you hook up with him for about an hour, you leave, you go to the car, and what do you see?
I see that there's glass all over, there's glass inside, there's really nothing in the car. Everything looked like it was rummaged through.
So plaintiff, you get a text from your cousin saying your car's been broken into. What did you do next?
I tell my husband, I'm like, the car's been broken into.
Okay, was he home at this point?
No, not yet.
Okay, so you called him.
Yes.
And what did you tell him when you called him?
I tell him we need to go to where the car is, and he, I guess, already knew where the car was.
Do you think it was odd that he just happened to know where she was at that time?
Eventually I did.
Okay, so you get there, you see your car's been broken into. At this point, did you get a little suspicious?
Well, yeah, whenever the guy who was staying in the room next to you calls my husband by his first name.
Okay, so what happened once you figured out, okay, something's going on here?
I was screaming at her in the parking lot. Oh, we were going.
When you figured out what was going on between your husband and your cousin, I mean, you were ready to literally get into a physical altercation with her.
Oh, I was ready to catch a charge. Ready.
Well, I can tell you, I would have been smashing those plates if I had been you. I would have been smashing plates. So, once you figured out what had happened, did you move out of your cousin's house at that point?
Yes.
Okay. Ever since this happened, what's been going on with the relationship between the two of you?
I miss her, but it sucks.
You miss her despite the fact that she was screwing around with your husband?
She's my only family. So, it's really hard losing your best friend over something so stupid.
Miss Darney, let me just tell you this. I understand this is the only family that you feel you have, but this is toxic. This is toxic. And sometimes, even with family members, when people are toxic, you have to cut them out of your life, and you have to love them from afar. Your cousin is toxic. People who love you don't go behind your back and screw around with your husband. They just don't. You're better off without a toxic person in your life. I'm not seeing any remorse from you. You basically come in and you've almost destroyed a 10-year marriage where there are 2 kids involved, and this woman's been like a sister to you. Plaintiff has sued you for $940. You're responsible for her stolen property because legally she loaned you her vehicle, and when she did, you became responsible for both the vehicle and the contents of that vehicle. Due to your negligence, the car was broken into. So you're going to have to pay her back for the car, and it's my advice to you to cut this toxic woman out of your life. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $940.
Thank you, Your Honor. Best of luck to you.